Welcome back to Aging Untold. We all make choices about how we live, where we live, and what we value. For some families, that same thinking goes into their final resting place, the setting, the materials, and the impact it leaves behind. So let's talk about green burials. Amy, when people hear that term, what does it mean and what options can families consider?
So a green burial is basically you're not being embalmed. And what I love about the funeral industry is that they're offering so many alternatives. The green burial is something that applies to the environmentally conscious consumer and somebody that wants to be buried. So those two things, especially in today's world, if that's really important to you as a consumer, that's the conversation to start with the funeral home and to say that I really, that green burial is important to me. I was reading about a mushroom suit that you can be buried in, and it actually neutralizes the toxins, so the soil gets better through this green suit. I know, I had the same reaction.
Weird.
It is. That's why when I say approach the funeral home is to ask a lot of questions, because there's more available than you really know, and especially if you want to be really in preserving the environment.
So I called a local funeral director that's a friend of mine. So he visited with me on some of this. He said, first of all, there is this myth that you can be buried in a tree root, and that was actually, I think, maybe a story in Europe, and people latched onto it, and it makes the rounds through social media. And he's like, that does not really exist yet, but people ask about it. But the thing of it is that if they're interested in alternatives, to know that it's not something you can say, oh, let's hurry up and make a decision this weekend after a death, that you need to plan in advance to see what local regulations and what local options there are, because it's very specific to the area that you live in. And my friend said one of the reasons why is because there's a lot of cost involved in some of these different things. Like water cremation is something that I just started hearing about, and it's called alkaline hydrolysis. And he said that equipment to do that is very, very costly. And so it may not be available in very many areas yet, but that's something that people are curious about.
What is that exactly?
It is a process of cremating a body using maybe 95% water, a lot of water, and creates a little wastewater product. So there are things out there, but it's unfamiliar to a lot of people, so it maybe hasn't caught on in very many areas. But I'm just curious, would any of you consider that?
I would consider it 100%. And the cost is in between cremation and burial, but I really want to preserve the environment. And my husband and I are actually talking about doing the mushroom suit, to think that our body would nourish the soil, that we could, be buried and actually make the world a little bit better as we're leaving, is very appealing.
I would. We have a private family burial spot on the farm, and so I would certainly consider it, because we can do the green burial. It's cost savings and it's environmentally protected.
And you jump through all the hoops in order to do that legally.
Legally we can have our own.
You're going to do cremation.
I'm on cremation.
Okay.
Yeah, and that's the largest. Today, that's the largest category of dispositions is cremation. So it's really interesting how things evolve.
I'm interested in the water cremation.
Yeah,
I think that'll start coming up soon.
I might be interested in that one. I like the idea of water.
We've got more to come on Aging Untold.